The Medallion Info Center was used on Malibu, Tige, and Supra boats, and it often has many common issues related to the image you see here. Today we're going to focus on the capacitor replacement. This is going to take care of very common issues known as blank or faint text. So if you can't see anything, it's just totally blank, and you still have a backlight, your buttons still work, your capacitors have probably gone bad. Or if it's kind of faint like this image, it's probably on its way out, so it's a good time to replace it. We're going to get those old aluminum capacitors removed. We're going to go ahead and install by soldering new capacitors on the board. It's a very basic do-it-yourself job. We're going to start right here. So first off, once you get the display out of your boat, there's 4 T10 screws on the back. We're going to remove those, and that's going to gain access to the main circuit board. We'll lift that right out, disconnect the backlight, and then also the LCD. If you need the LCD, those commonly fail by getting really dark or burnt up looking, like blackened. We have those available also at mtcscreens.com. You can just order whatever parts you need on the website, sort of a la carte. Order what you need, and then we can take a look at these capacitors here. They're the silver round cylinders in a few different areas of the board here. The capacitor replacement kit is available on mtcscreens.com. It comes with all the parts you need for each location, and you can order those separately on like DigiKey or Mouser, but it's easy just to get them all in one shot, or you can just piecemeal it together on your own and order the parts here, but the job is still the same. And the page you see there is marked. That's going to show you what capacitor goes at what location. So for tools, you'll need a soldering iron, of course, some solder, some flux, an error rework tool, and we use that at about 500 to 600 degrees, and a smaller 3-5 millimeter nozzle somewhere in that range seems to work pretty well. But this is optional. This sort of tool that holds the circuit board makes it a little bit easier, but it can certainly be done without that. So what we want to do is kind of just take a look at the different boards. The indicators mark C7, C17. That's just like the C is capacitor, and the 17, 15, 14, whatever the number is the location. So you can reference the sheet that your capacitors come on to know where they go. Very important to be organized here and don't get stuff mixed up. Otherwise, it's not going to work properly. Go one section at a time. Some sections we only replace one capacitor, some we replace 4, 5, 6 or so. And the video here is going to describe exactly what happens in the real environment. So, all right, so let's start with this one on the left side here. We're going to use that error tool to kind of soften up the existing solder that holds the capacitors in place. Now, the very important part here is we don't want to remove other components from the board with the excess heat. So try and keep your airflow, your reflow tool in the right position. Be aware that you don't want to heat up anything else. And once you start to see that solder kind of become liquefied again, you can kind of just gently lift up on the one side, and then go to the other side, and that will free up the capacitor. Don't pull too hard, otherwise that's going to pull the trace off the board, and that will cause permanent damage. So just you be patient and wait until the solder shows signs of liquefying, where it gets like liquid, and it will have a different, I guess, shine to it as well. So we'll do the same thing here in the next row. C13 through 17, these are all in a line. Take care to not reflow the resistors that are on the board right behind it. So just be aware of that, of where that air is going, that hot air. And then definitely these capacitors are going to be pretty hot when you remove them due to the hot air reflow tool. So just be aware of that and place them in safe spots so you don't cause any damage or burns or anything. Just a few seconds on each side is really all it needs. Kind of go back and forth until the solder is liquid, and then just lift up on that cylinder. And it comes right out without any excess force. All right, easy as that. That's all of them. We'll move on to the next section, the C9 through C12. Same process. Apply the hot air reflow to each side where it's soldered to the board, and it will lift right off. And if this type of work doesn't interest you or you don't really want to tackle it, you can always mail your info center in for capacitor replacement. It's very low cost to have it done professionally. We'll send you a shipping label to your email to make it easy, and you can drop it off at your local shipping carrier that's marked in the label. Some people are kind of do-it-yourselfers. They want to tackle the job themselves, not have to mail it in or anything, and that's totally fine. And this video is hopefully a help, the guidance on how to do that. This capacitor here is a little bit larger, so it does take a little bit more heat to soften up that solder. A little bit more time as well. And you'll notice, of course, as you heat up one side, any surrounding areas do heat up faster because of that residual heat effect. So now we've got all of our capacitors removed, and we're gonna apply just a little bit of solder to just one side of the pad when we place the capacitor on. And the reason for not doing both is because we want the capacitor to sit pretty flat to the board. And if you do both of them at the same time, it's kind of tilted and it's hard to get the capacitor flat and stable and even. So what we do here, the general thought was that you apply solder to one area, apply the capacitor, and then reflow that solder on the right side in this video. And that's going to essentially allow you to press down and push into place each capacitor so it's flat and secure on one side. And then we'll go back through and then just do the other side of the capacitor, allowing it to be fully soldered to the board, nice and flat and straight. So we'll start here with the C18. This is a single capacitor. Remove it from your sheet. Use your little tweezers or pliers tool to handle it. It's very small. Be careful of dropping it. Oftentimes, if you drop it to the floor, it's very difficult to find. So you want to be aware of that and be careful as you open the package. It comes in a sort of cut tape, as you see here in this video. Then we can apply just a little bit of liquid gel solder flux to keep that contained and going into the right areas. It typically comes in a little dispenser bottle. And soldering irons at about 650 to 700 degrees. We're going to heat up the pad and then apply a little bit of solder until it's slightly domed, just like you see here. And that'll be enough to connect the capacitor when we go back through. So we'll just go back through all of the areas where the capacitor was removed, apply with just one side, and it'll all make sense why it's one side here when we do the other section. All right, and we'll take that C18 capacitor and just hold it in place here. You can see how the express solder kind of keeps it tilted. And once we liquefy that solder, once it flows with the heat of the soldering iron, you can keep that capacitor flat in the center. Remove the soldering iron. Now it's flat and secured on the one side. So that's a nice fillet on that solder that is connected well. And we can keep that same process going where we basically hold the capacitor in place, do the one side, reflow that solder, and then hold it flat against the board. And that will stabilize it so we can do the other side without the capacitor being askew or lifted from the circuit board. And of course, same process here. We'll just hold each capacitor in place, float with solder. The capacitor falls down flat to the board, and then it will liquefy, or it will solidify once you remove the heat, and then move on to the next one. Make sure you get a nice amount of heat applied to the capacitor end so that solder can flow up there and really lock that down. This level of soldering would be basic level, 2 or 3 out of 10. In terms of difficulty or challenge, it's a good do-it-yourself job. Here you can see the in that one the solder didn't connect, so we'll just apply a little bit more heat. Make sure the solder goes up to the side of the capacitor, and then only remove the pliers once you know it's cooled sufficiently to be solid. And then on the sheet, you'll have the capacitors taped to the paper, as well as the quantity and part number and location. So that makes it very easy and clear to see where they go and what quantity you'll need. So just continue on. Same process for each capacitor. All right, so we've got all of the capacitors in the correct quantity and the correct location, and they're all seated correctly with one side locking it down. Now what we're going to do is go back through and do the other side. Each capacitor has two sides. We're going to go and do the final one, and then we'll do just a quick check to check out all the joints, make sure it's secured and it's not going to fall off during use. It's a standard quality check. All right, so we'll start with the C20. Heat up that pad. Fill it with solder. Make sure the solder flows up to the side of the capacitor. And then we can remove the iron. Showing a nice billet there. And just a little bit extra to make sure it's nice and secure. And now we can see why it's important to do to apply solder to the one pad first. Otherwise, you would be at the capacitor would be tilted away from the circuit board. It wouldn't be stable. So that's why we did the first step. And go back through and do a second pass. The C8 location has a unusually large solder pad, so it might take a little bit extra solder to have it connect to the capacitor, just like we saw there. It's a little bit wider, so you can definitely add some more to make sure it's nice, the nice angle there like you see in the video. Right, so here we cleaned off all of the excess solder flux with isopropyl alcohol and the little brush, and we're going to go through and check and make sure everything is nice and fully secured, and these capacitors look great. So this replaced all of the aluminum capacitors with the new SMD versions, completely restoring the brightness and contrast of your display. But once again, if you need the parts, the overlay, the LCD capacitors, you can order these at ntcscreens.com. Mail-in service or the DIY repair kit, both are available. This helps you save several $100s compared to buying a new display unit, and it's a very rewarding and satisfying do-it-yourself job as well. Hopefully this helped. Thanks for watching.